Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. In today's episode, it is time for Christmas in July, you guys. I am so excited this is here. I absolutely love Christmas DIYs, and I'm so excited we get to take a break from our normal everyday stuff and take time to do some fun Christmas DIYs. If Christmas in July is not your thing, never fear. I will be back Friday with an everyday video that you guys are going to love. But for today, I have 10 beautiful Christmas DIY signs for you. If you like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. If you like any of today's projects, go ahead and hit that thumbs up, but let's go make some DIYs. For this project, you just need a blank picture like this. Now, this originally had some writing on it. It was from Hobby Lobby, I believe. I bought it at the clearance. I had painted over it for another project, but I'd never used it, so it's perfect for this. And I have these two little different grapevine wreaths, these two different sizes. And I've seen these at a couple of like the craft shows that I've been to recently and even some boutiques. So I thought it would be fun to make my own little snowman. And I'm just using some scrap wood for the snowman's hat. I'm just going to paint these with some black paint. Now, this little brim is just a piece of a painter's stick, and then it's just a little piece of scrap wood from like one of those Dollar Tree planks that you get that come like 5 in a package. Now, to embellish my little snowman here, I want some cute little bells. These are just some rusted bells. You can take some regular bells that you may have, spray them with some adhesive or put Mod Podge on them and put some cinnamon on them to rust them up. Soak them in some vinegar to do a rust technique that way. I actually bought a container at the craft store of just rusted bells because I use them a lot in my Christmas DIYs. So I thought it would be fun to have some just on hand. I just took 2 of them and I just tied them together so that way they could dangle from what's going to be like the belly of our snowman here. And I'm just using some hot glue on the back of this wreath. I wanted to attach the bells before I put the wreath onto my background because I just wanted to make sure that they were attached really well. And the twine that I was using, like the knot, was hidden behind it. So that way when I glue it on, you don't see that at all. Using quite a bit of hot glue, I go around my wreath here 2 or 3 times to make sure that I have a sufficient amount of glue that's going to touch the surface. You want to pay attention when you're using the grapevine because sometimes the glue will seep down into all the crevices there and you won't have a lot that touches your surface. So just make sure when you're working with something that has a lot of gaps and crevices, such as a grapevine wreath like this, that you make sure you have enough glue that adheres the surface and what you're gluing down. So just kind of eyeballing the spacing here to make sure I have enough room for his hat. I place that on so I can kind of see what I'm doing, and then I glue on the head. Now, to pop up the hat, I didn't show this and I apologize for that, but I did put a little square block behind it to raise that up. And you'll be able to see it a little bit as I go on through the video how it looks, but I just thought that the dimension on the hat looked really cute. That way it wasn't so flat. It kind of comes out over his head. You can see the gap there. I really loved the look of the dimension of that, so it worked really well to have that pop out. Now, instead of a scarf on my snowman, I thought it would be fun to do kind of some florals, some pine boughs here. Make it look really festive, almost like a great big bow tie, I guess, of all of these different Christmas foliages here. These are just scrap pieces that I had. So just take a look at what you have in your Christmas florals. Maybe you've got something that would already work really simple for this. And I just did the same thing on either side, so it was really symmetrical and just kind of went for things with different textures, different tones, different colors. You could be as colorful as you wanted this or have it be as neutral as you wanted with this. Now, a lot of the greenery that I was working with was a plasticky consistency, so I did switch from hot glue over to Beacon's glue, so I wasn't melting any of the florals that I was using. So just keep that in mind, that Beacon's glue is amazing. Now, I did just tie a little bit of gingham ribbon here into a shoestring bow, and I'm just gluing that down with some hot glue. I'm leaving the tails a little bit longer so I can kind of maybe have them ripple down over the wreath here, and I do dovetail the ends. You just fold it in half and cut up into a V motion or V shape there, so that way you can see you have that really pretty dovetail end to your bows. just using a dot or two of that Bacon's glue, I am just placing it on the grapevine wreath and the ribbon and pressing the ribbon down so it has a rippling effect, so it looks like it is just free falling over the snowman's belly, but that way we have control of where it is, so you can still see those bells tied in the middle. It's not going to fall down. And I do the same thing on the other side, just making sure to have a couple of little bends in the ribbon so that way you have the natural looking ripples. Now I have this little tag. It's just from a set of Walmart tag ornaments, and it just says Joy on it. I loved the colors, and I thought it was just a cute little embellishment, like he's just holding on to a cute little tag to give someone there. Now I want to decorate his hat. So I have this burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree that has print on it. And I thought it would be really cute to kind of cut this down to size so that way it matches the size of his hat. It's not going to be too overwhelming. And I am just, since the hat is popped out, I can just fold each of those sides around and glue it onto the back. And then just leave a little bit of enough space so you can tuck some greenery down in there. So I'm just using a little bit of glue, and I just do a couple little sprigs there of some leaves and some berries to have it look like his hat's really festive. And I'm just placing a little red jingle bell right there on the front. And I had a little bit of the ribbon that I had used on his bow tie, so I just kind of folded that over like it was just kind of a little sash coming out of his hat there, and I just thought it looked really cute. You can be as fun and add as much embellishment as you want, or make it as simple as you want. Now I'm just putting a little bow on the tag there, and I decided that his hat was really black, and so I just decided to brighten it up a bit with a little bit of white paint on my brush, just dry brushing over that to kind of brighten it up. And that makes our little snowman complete. Isn't he just the cutest? I love how this turned out. I think that it is very farmhouse and rustic, but high-end and classy at the same time. I think it's beautiful, and it would be a great addition to anyone's Christmas decor collection. What do you guys think of him? This little silver tray from Dollar Tree has sat in my stash for a very long time, and I've never really known what to do with it, but I actually have the perfect idea. I feel like you'll have to let me know. So I'm just painting the front and the back completely with 2 or 3 layers of chalk paint and just a neutral color. And I have this stamp. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby in case you're wanting to pick one up similar to it. I know there's a lot of different companies that make a script stamp, so it just looks like writing. And I just rubbed my black ink pad all over it, and I'm just going to press it down. This is just the front part of the tray, so like the serving part. Now this is going to be a decoration. It's not going to be for food or anything. You'll see why here as we go along. But you can see that I just kind of place that in different directions on there. And even though there's like a gap missing somewhere, totally fine. I even go in and fill in some of the other little areas with some different directions. It all looks fine in the end. At first I was like, ooh, what did I do? But what you want to do now is after that ink has a minute to kind of set, I'm spraying it with my mister bottle, and you can see it's making the ink run everywhere. I'm just going to wipe that off with a paper towel because it's just going to tone that ink back. That chalk paint has already grabbed onto the initial part of that ink, so it's, because it's so porous, it's holding on to that, but I'm just wiping off the excess ink. Stick with me because I know you're going to love how this ends up looking. So I take some Crackle Medium, and I am just putting that onto the front part of my tray. You just want to make sure that you get a decent coverage, a good coat on there, and then you want to follow the instructions of your Crackle Medium. This is folk art, but there's several different types on the market that you can use. Just make sure you're following your instructions, letting it dry completely. So now that it's dry, you're going to take your paint that you want as your top coat. I'm choosing the same color as my base coat, and I'll show you why here in just a moment. You may think that's not the point of Crackle, but you'll see how it turns out. You just don't want to go over areas that you've been because you can disturb that process that's happening of the crackle. So if you do it early on before that paint starts to set, because you can definitely do that. And if you've seen me in any of my other videos, you know I've learned that from experience. So you can kind of see how it's starting to crackle there. You can see a little bit of that script coming through, just a very subtle touch. And I take a wet paper towel or a baby wipe with some antiquing wax, just a water-based antiquing wax. I use Waverly, but you can use any kind that you would like as long as it's water-based. And I'm just wiping this all over that crackle. So that's going to settle down into all of those crackled areas and really make those pop. I didn't want to have like a lot of different colors on this to do the typical crackle style. You can even see I'm spraying it with my mister bottle there, and I'm just going to rub the excess off of the top because I really just want all of those cracks that we created to absorb that antiquing wax. Now I didn't place the crackle medium on the edge of the tray because it had this lovely detail that I figured I could distress much more easily doing this. So I'm just putting a little bit of the antiquing wax all the way around the edge of the tray, and then I will just take a paper towel or baby wipe and wipe it back so it goes down into all the grooves, and then you're wiping away the top to reveal that design. Now look at how cute this Santa ornament is. I picked that up at Walmart this year, so check and see. I was at my Walmart the other day again and they had tons of them. And I'm just taking some IOD Christmas molds. Now you definitely don't have to use this. I just had a lot of you say that you have purchased these and you were excited to see what I did with them. But I think if you were to use some buttons or even some actual greenery to do this with, there's so many different possibilities. But I'm just placing my air dry clay into my mold here, and I'm using actually my Cricut tool here. This actually works really well to scrape off the excess clay. As you can see here, you can kind of cut into it. I can use it to get into the edges. So there's a little hack for you that I kind of accidentally discovered. I was kind of looking for something to scrape that off with and went, that's perfect. So the little spatula tool works great. Now once you have this all pushed in, you're going to turn your mold over and you're just going to release it by bending it and working very slowly, just kind of grabbing onto it and helping it drop out of there. You're not pulling, you're just kind of helping it to fall out of there. I've heard some other creators doing like where they put it into the freezer for a little bit to harden it a little bit more. There's lots of different methods, but I have not had a trouble doing it this way. As you can see, it takes a minute here. It's kind of a slow process to get that all out, but once it starts falling, gravity just kind of takes over. You can see I kind of have to help it just a little bit there, just a little nick there to get it to completely have gravity take over and fall out. And so you can kind of see where I'm going to place these on here. I cut, or not cut, but I end up casting 2 of these to go on both corners on the top of my Santa, and then I move on to do some for the bottom. Now what I did is I casted a shorter one. I just didn't bring my clay all the way down to the bottom of my mold because I wanted, you can see that my tray is not big enough to do a full one on the bottom. And so what I end up doing is I end up tearing away part of the mold here, and I'll take some clay and I will go and cast the bottom part only so I can have that finished look like it really is the true edge to my bows there. So you can see I just put it into the bottom part and pull that out. And even when I match that up, I think, oh, I need to pull a little bit of this away. So you just tear it off and you're just going to place it on there and see how that looks. Now we have to adhere these. So how do we do that? I've heard wood glue works, and so that's what I'm going to try. So I just placed some wood glue on the back. My clay is still wet at this point, so it is I can manipulate it very well, bend it to where I need to, but I'm just using my finger to spread that wood glue all over. And so that way I can get all of those tiny little pieces and everything and make sure that I put a decent amount on there that it's going to hold. And again, just spread that out with my finger, and then I just place that down. And since it is wet, I can kind of still move it, bend it, and that way get it positioned exactly how I want it. I do this to all of my pieces, and then I let this sit overnight to dry. You can see how beautiful it looks. And there was one little area that cracked, but that's okay. It just adds to that vintage look, and we're going to paint over it. So really the paint does kind of, if you have just minimal cracking like that, the paint kind of goes into there and fills that space in. But I'm just going to paint these the same as the base color of the tray. So in this case, it was just kind of a white or neutral color. And then I'm going to age it so it looks like it belongs on here. So I'm just getting a brush with some antiquing wax and getting into all of those little tiny grooves. And this mold from IOD has so much detail that it really is a lot that antiquing wax goes down in and grabs onto to reveal so much detail. And you can see I'm just wiping it away with a baby wipe here, just getting all of that excess antiquing wax off as much as I can anyway with my baby wipe. And then I will go back in with a little bit kind of like a dry brushing and hit all of the high points of these bows. And then also kind of, you can see I'm getting into the edge there just to kind of clean it up a bit and make it look a little bit more like it was just aged and dirt had just fallen in there. So this is the finished product. I love it. I think it looks great. So it's just a matter of personal preference of what style you like. Now I'm going to place my Santa head on here like this Santa ornament. I just unscrewed the little hanging thing from the top of him, and I'm just using some E6000. I'm just going to let this sit so I don't use any hot glue, but you definitely could if you need that instant hold, but I was just going to be letting this sit again for a while to cure and dry, so I just used the E6000, and I just centered it on there, and I just think this has such a beautiful, like Victorian look almost. I don't know, this Santa ornament really just spoke to me, and I thought this tray and that worked really well together, and it was such a fun way to use those molds. But again, use your imagination if you don't have them. Definitely don't worry about that. Like I said, some buttons would be so beautiful there. Some actual greenery that you glued onto there would be beautiful. Even leaving it plain, that edge on that tray is beautiful as is. There's so many different possibilities. So just use what you have, and I'm sure yours is going to turn out absolutely beautiful. I love doing DIYs that incorporate the true meaning of Christmas, and I'm going to use this little laser cut nativity from Dollar Tree. They generally every year have something very similar to this that you can do this with. Now I'm taking this sign, this is from their summer line here, and I really like this seashell. So a true crafter, you know, you take things apart and think, oh, maybe I'll use this. So into my stash it went. But I'm taking this sign, and I love these square signs that they do this time of year. I'm just removing the little frame. Now the frame is in 4 separate pieces that you can see here, and I'm just using my putty knife to kind of slide under them to tear it off, because it is kind of, the adhesive that it uses is on like a paper that the sign is printed on. So you'll just have to rip that off and make sure that you have all clean edges for your frame. Now after I do that, I just am taking some scrapbook paper. I love this burlap, and so that's kind of the look I was going for. You can personalize this to anything you would like to use. And I'm just flipping this sign over, and I'll just trace along so I know kind of where to generally cut. Now I don't cut right on the line. I kind of cut a little bit to the side of it because I do want to sand it to get a really clean edge. And I'm using my most favorite glue. You guys have seen me use this so many times. This is the Purple Elmer School Glue, and I really have such great success with this and crafting. I don't ever have pieces that peel up or anything. And I just push this down, and then this is a really good trick to do when you're using your glue sticks, is to use a brayer like this. And this is going to make sure that you have a really good bond. It is going to get any bubbles or anything like that out. Now what I like to do with my scrapbook paper is I take my fingernail file here. I love to use fingernail files when I'm crafting because they get into all those little nooks and crannies. And I just sand in a downward motion away from the paper that I just glued on and get a nice crisp clean edge. You can see that paper peel right off there. It looks like that paper was meant to go on that surface. Now I'm choosing to paint my frame that goes around this picture black, and so I'm just painting all of the pieces that go to this frame here. I left the pieces of the frame in the order that they were, where they went on the sign, so that way I knew where to exactly glue them back on. So I'm just taking a couple pieces from this nativity. It does have the little wise men with it, and it has like a little stand that holds them up. I mean, it's absolutely darling. But I really just want Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus here, along with the little stable. I thought this was so cute, and we're going to use this. Now I kind of had them set up like that, but I'll set them up a little bit different. You'll see on the surface how I end up doing it. I wanted them to be a dark color of the antiquing wax rather than using like a baby wipe like I normally do to just kind of lightly brush it on. So I really went thick with the antiquing wax on this to have that. I wanted a very natural wood look to it, but I did want it to contrast with what I'm doing, so I did a very heavy coat. Now I just found this Joy to the World sheet music online. I just searched in Google Joy to the World sheet music, free, printable. Several came up, so you could do whatever hymn you wanted or whatever song for Christmas time or for whatever time of year you're doing a DIY like this. But it was totally free, and I am just tearing off the edges here, and we're going to age this paper. So when I go around the title, I definitely want you to see that title there, the Joy to the World. So I take my time going around that as I'm tearing this. Now I have this little kit. I've used it before. It helps with making like aged documents, aged papers. I don't know why I said documents, but you get my drift here. So it's just going to make this look really old. Now you could tea stain this. You could do several different processes. I just happen to have this kit for my scrapbooking days, and so I'm just using it. And you just kind of dip, it's like an ink, very light ink, and it's got this little dabber that you will dab in that, and then you just kind of rub and buff it on there, and it gets this nice aged look to the paper. Now I didn't tear the bottom of my sheet music because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to place it on my picture. So after I kind of used my stable there for some spacing, I decide exactly where I want to tear this, and then I will go and I do distress that edge too of the paper. So now to make it look really old, I'm just crumpling it up just as if it was garbage or something here. You just want to make sure to get lots of wrinkles in it, and then just lightly, just be careful not to tear it as you're undoing this. I mean, I guess some tears would look okay, but you just want to have it mostly intact here. And then I'm taking a little bit of this ink and I'm just rubbing it directly over very lightly, and it hits each of those little wrinkles and it just makes them pop with a little bit of texture and definition. Now to make this like more sturdy and it's not going to have water that ruins it or anything, I do put a coat of Mod Podge both on the front and the back. And I'm using my favorite school glue here again and just placing this on there. Now you could easily, mine goes over down to the edge. You could center this to be completely in the center if you would like. There are so many different ways and things you could do this. I do use my brayer here to make sure that all of the wrinkled paper gets put down. You want to make sure you have a good bond and it's not going to peel back or fall off. And then just using hot glue, I just carefully piece all of the frame pieces back and hot glue those just to make sure that they're all where they were. Now I'm going to place my stable and my nativity here. And before I glue them down, I just kind of play around, and this is when I decide to put Mary and Joseph on the side of the stable, just because I didn't feel like you could see them super well if they were placed on the stable, and with the spacing of the frame that I was using, I thought they would look cute kind of on the side there. So that's why I decided to do that. But I'm just using some of this, I think it's Aleen's tacky glue. You get it at Dollar Tree, and I've heard a lot of crafters use it. This is actually the first time that I've used it, and it holds pretty well. I just didn't want hot glue, and I didn't have any super glue close by, so I went ahead and used that. Now I do want to put a beaded handle back on this like it originally came, the sign. So I'm just taking some wood beads and I am staining them with just some antiquing wax, and I'll just thread them onto some twine. And then all I will do after I thread these is just tie it on to the top of the frame. So I just push that. When I put my frame on, I made sure to line the holes up that were originally there from the little shore sign with the seashell, and so I just tuck that through, and then I just tie it on either side of this sign. That way, if you decide you want to hang this, you definitely can. If you want to leave it and not mess around with putting anything on the top, or just put some twine or some beautiful ribbon or something, that would be completely up to you. Personalize it any way that you would like. I just love incorporating the true meaning of Christmas into the Christmas DIYs, and I thought that I would definitely take an opportunity right now to do that. I love the simplicity of this. I love this Christmas hymn. I love the rustic way that this looks, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful in my home for Christmas. I love using pieces from Hobby Lobby's clearance section. If you guys have watched me for any length of time, you know that I love picking these items up and I just keep them in my stash because they really are such a great deal than just buying true like signed blanks, because you can get such wonderful pieces at such cheap prices, and you just change the way that they look completely. So this is inspired by something I saw in a catalog last Christmas, and it's been in my mind for a long time, and I thought this is the perfect sign to do this with. So I taped off all of the frames so I could paint it and not have any paint get on that beautiful frame that was on this, and I'm just going to peel that back after giving this probably about 4 coats to get the coverage that I wanted. Now I did use my cutting machine to cut this out because I have the world's worst handwriting. If you guys have watched me, you know that I do not freehand anything well. Stenciling, I do stencil quite a bit though. I don't usually use my cutting machine all that often, but I did want to for this particular project because I loved this font here, and I'll list the font down in my description box, so if you want to try and replicate this, you can. But stencils would be so cute, even using Dollar Tree stickers. Now you can have different red trucks from anywhere. I'm just showing you a few that were in my stash from Dollar Tree, or one was off of a garland. I have this wood cutout that I never used last year, and I thought it would be really cute because I wanted to put the red buffalo check paper on it. So I'm just tracing out the silhouette really of this truck here, and I'm just going to cut it out, and then we'll glue it on just using that famous purple school glue you guys have seen me use 100 times. I really do love this glue. It works so well. So I just carefully line up my truck as best as I can. I didn't cut it so exact. I wanted there to be a little bit of an edge because I will, after I use my brayer, of course. This just helps get that really good bond with your paper and your surface. I take my sander here, just my fingernail file, and definitely a fingernail file works so good for these little pieces like this, and I will just sand off the edge of the paper to have a really good look. Now, if you're worried about paper edges, I'm just taking a little bit of black paint on my baby wipe and going around the edge to cover any type of white paper that you might see when you do that. Now I have this tree that came, this is a Dollar Tree, and I thought it was so cute and bushy. I did just use some, not pliers, but some trimmers. I can't think of the word right now, but anyway, I cut the wire off. Wire cutters, that's probably what they're called. I cut the wire cutters, use the wire cutters. My goodness, I'm struggling. Anyway, I cut the base of the tree off, and I'm just using some hot glue to glue this into the truck here. And then to have it fit flat on the surface, I did just kind of bend apart the bristles on this I almost called it a brush, but it's a tree. It's like a bristle brush tree, I think is what they call them, or a bottle brush tree, something. You'll have to let me know down in the comments for sure what it's called, because I'm not quite sure. My mind is still trying to get totally into this Christmas mode here. But I'm just using some little blocks there, as you saw, to glue onto the back of the truck to help pop it out, have a little bit of a 3D look. And if I needed to cut any of those bristles off on that tree, I did that to make sure that it would fit as flat as I could on the surface. And then I'm just using my heat gun to get any of the hot glue little strings that you get. This just kind of melts those away really easily. But look at how darling this sign is. I think it is so cute. And you just read that and you just kind of can't help but sing it in your head. And I just think that little plaid truck looks darling on here. What do you guys think of this piece? Do you like it? Now this is such a fun and easy project, and you're just going to use calendar pages. Now I'm showing you the Dollar Tree calendar page, as well as this is just a calendar. I actually have my mom save all of her old calendars for me because she has such fun different designs on them. And this is to show you, you can use any type of calendar. Check your thrift stores for them. If you have like a friend that you see has a really cute calendar, ask them what they do with it at the end of the year, if you could possibly have it. A lot of times they're more than happy to give them to you if you're going to make something fun out of them. So I'm just taking a sign that I had from Hobby Lobby that I purchased on clearance, and I did have to place a little bit of scrapbook paper in the top and the bottom to fill in just a little bit of a gap because it was not completely the size of my calendar page, which is totally fine. You're just going to cut it down to size to fit. Sometimes you'll worry about, oh, I'm going to cut part of the design off. It looks fine in the end. You're just going to work with what you have. So you can see I'm just going to place this down. I just put a layer of Mod Podge down. Now this particular calendar page was a lot thicker than the Dollar Tree calendar pages if you've worked with those. So it was almost like cardstock consistency, like a shiny cardstock consistency. So it was really nice to work with. I wasn't going to have a lot of wrinkles, but I do end up having to use some of the purple Elmer's glue stick on the edges to help them completely stay down. So I'm just using that as a different alternative to the Mod Podge to make sure that you keep that edge down flat. So I'll show you that here in just a moment. I'm just using some saran wrap right here. That just helps, or plastic wrap. It just helps get all of any bubbles or wrinkles out without using your fingers that would maybe snag or rip a design or something like that. But here's where I add that glue stick just to make sure. Sorry for my hair getting in there, but this is just going to make sure that that edge is down, because I kept noticing it like wanting to roll back up with the Mod Podge, and this stuff is magic. You know that I love to work with this medium much more than I do actual Mod Podge, but for the nature of this particular video, I'm using Mod Podge in a lot of my crafts. So I'm just taking some antiquing wax on a brush, and this is going to hide any edge. If maybe you had an uneven cut or didn't maybe quite meet, I mean, you're going to do your best to have even cuts and meet the edge of your project that you're working with. But this is going to disguise if there's any imperfections. So I'm just going around the edge. This is also going to create almost like a frame or vignette to help focus your eye into the middle of the design. And you're just going to pounce up and down and I end up with what's left on the brush going over the entire design. This just adds a little bit of extra embellishment. You could even go over with some Mod Podge on the little snow and sprinkle some glitter if you wanted to add a little bit of extra shine. That would be so cute too. But you can see how it just kind of adds a little bit more of an aged look. This is a beautiful sign. I mean, you could sell this if you had a craft booth. And you can see how fun it is to look for all the different, think of all the different calendar pages you've seen over the course of your life and how fun some of those designs are and how they literally are works of art, and they're so fun to work with, and it makes this beautiful sign. It's a quick project, it's an easy project, and man, it makes such an impact. Have you guys worked with calendar pages before? I'd love to know what you guys made with them. This piece of wood is just left over from another project that I had, and I've been saving it, trying to think of a sign to use it for, and I'm going to make a darling little Christmas Believe sign. Now, it's rather plain the way it is, and so I'm using some of this trim that I got from Lowe's. It's very long, it's like 6 feet long or something like that, so I can't fit it all into the frame, but I just found it in the trim section, and there are a lot of different types of trim that you could get to use on the edges of signs. So I just liked the way this kind of looked like candy cane swirls to me. So I just cut it down at a 45-degree angle on each of the corners on the edges. I just measured the edges of the sign and then just cut that down either with a hand saw or a miter saw, table saw, whatever you've got. And then I'm just using some wood glue and just a teeny bit of hot glue to give that really quick hold, and then that wood glue will be that long-term hold. And I'm just going to go like a puzzle piece and glue each of the edges onto here, making sure that I line it up straight with the edge of the sign. And you can see I'm just going to push it down to make sure I get a really good firm hold there. And I just want to make sure when I'm placing the other pieces that the corners line up really well. So just pay attention to that as you're doing this. But as you can see this sign coming together here, that trim really does add such a nice touch to it. Now for my sign, I'm going to paint the entire thing white, both the flat part of the sign and then the trim as well. You just want to make sure that you are getting into the little grooves of all of your trim really well. Either pounce up and down with your brush on all of those little grooves there. Whatever you need to do, a sponge brush would work really well also. Dollar Tree has started to have a lot of different laser cut words for different seasons and different holidays. They both have them in wood and then they also have them in tin. But I am going to use this word that says believe here, and I'm just using like a baby wipe and some red paint to go over this because I wanted to keep that crisp cleanness on the edge of the laser cut sign. Now, you can use a paint marker, which I have discovered is a lot easier than doing this method, even because you sometimes will get some snags from the baby wipes with the wood. It'll leave some of the little teeny like cloth fibers, which I'm not a huge fan of. So if you have paint markers, try that. I think that will work a little bit easier and you can be very clean with those. You can also pick up individual paint markers at the craft store if you don't want to buy an entire pack of them. But I just took the sign, I'm back to my sign here, and I just took some antiquing wax. Now you could also use some brown acrylic paint mixed with some water to do a wash on this if you wanted, but I'm going to go around this entire trim, pouncing all of that antiquing wax into those grooves. And then I'm going to wipe back the excess. I really like the aged look this gives to the sign. I feel like with all of that beautiful trim on there, you want to be able to see the detail. And if you just leave it painted solid, I mean, it looks fine, but I think a lot of that detail is lost in that custom look that you're getting from this, and it looks kind of flat. So I do suggest doing something, whether it is a darker shade of a white paint or something, or just a little bit of a darker shade or lighter shade even of the color that you had used. That's going to let you see those grooves a lot easier. But you can see I do go over again with a little bit more white paint on my brush to brighten up the raised areas. And you can see how in all of those little grooves of that little swirly trim, how it really makes those pop and you can really see those. Since I've distressed the rest of the sign, I take a fingernail file and just go along the edge of some of this word believe to peel back some of the paint, make it look a little rustic. This is just a matter of personal preference, so do as little or as much as you want. I take a little bit of antiquing wax on a baby wipe and go around the edge of the letter so that way I can have it have that antiqued look rather than the bright color of the wood. And I'm just using some super glue. I like to use the DAP brand. I get it at Lowe's or Home Depot. Gorilla Glue, even super glue from Dollar Tree is going to work fine. But just place a little bit on there, maybe not even as much as I did, but you're just going to center that and press it down and let that dry. I am really pleased with the outcome of this sign. I think this is so beautiful and I love the simplicity of it. It really does make a statement, and that trim, I feel like it sets the entire piece off. I would love to know if you guys have used trim like this before or if you would like to. I had so much fun with this sign. I think I'm going to start using it on some of my other signs because I really feel it gives you that custom look that takes your piece to the next level. I'm going to make a reindeer crossing sign, and I'm going to use this little ornament sign from Dollar Tree. So I'll just remove this top metal portion that I don't need. And I'm using this little wood round that I have to kind of finish off and trace that perfect circular shape so I can cut the top of this sign off. Now, the reason I didn't just use that wood round was because it is kind of warped, and I do want this to have a very flat shape to it. So I'm just going to paint this with 2 or 3 coats of red paint. You can do this in whatever color matches your decor the best. And I will leave a link to this graphic down in my description box. But I just found this on Etsy and I thought it was so darling, and I loved the font that it was in and the little name of all the reindeer around the edges. I thought it was so cute. And the holly and the ivy in the chorus, it does talk about the running of the deer. And I thought, what could be cuter than the running of the deer than to have a reindeer crossing sign to go with it. Now this part would be completely optional, but I like to make everything a little bit more farmhouse. So I do go out into my garage and just cut a few pieces of the salvaged barnwood that we have from one of our barns that we tore down. And I'm just going to make a background for this sign to go against. And to keep all of these pieces together to connect them, I'm just cutting a painter stick here in half that I will use as my piece to hold all of the background together. So you'll kind of see what I do with that here. And then, of course, since it's barnwood, I've got to brush it off and make sure that there's nothing gross on it or anything. So I have these pieces and I just measured them with my sign on the top of it to see how big I wanted to cut it and how much I wanted showing through. Right now, I am just trying to decide if I want like the rougher, more rustic side to show or the smoother side to show. So it's whatever is, preference on this one. Again, this is just absolutely optional. You could easily, if you want to do the whole process I'm doing, do a canvas or do any type of bigger sign that you have and do whatever kind of finish on that you would like. You don't have to have barnwood to do this part. So I'm just using some wood glue on these painter sticks to hold these together, and I quickly realized after I glue this down that this is not exactly how I needed to do this because I need to be able to clamp this down onto the wood. And so I have to move it up a little bit to the edge because these clamps that I have right here were not working for how I wanted to do it. And I decided for a little bit of security to put some wood glue on the inside of my slats. So definitely follow this process I'm doing right here. And then when I place down my cross piece of wood at the top, I put it close enough to the top that I can just use some little, I'm not even sure what type of clamps these are called, just some like hand clamps maybe, just to kind of clip that onto it because that would give it the best hold. And I just let that dry completely. I'm showing you here like I'm hitting this pretty hard and it is not coming apart. You definitely could use some staples or anything in there that you would like to, but I just had the wood glue, so that's what I went with. This sign looks so cute with that barnwood in the background. So again, you could even stop here and just leave it like that because that definitely looks cute. But I am using a piece of styrofoam in the back of this sign, and I'm cutting a bunch of different types of Christmas picks. I got some from Hobby Lobby. It's a mixture of that and Dollar Tree picks. So whatever you have, of course, since I'm going with the holly and the ivy theme. I thought it would be fun to use a lot of holly throughout it. And I did realize the bottom of the barnwood there is not, it's not finished like where I cut it. It's kind of that raw wood. So I'm using antiquing wax on there, and it's the exact color of the barnwood. So you can't get much more farmhouse than that. So I will just glue the styrofoam piece into the center there. And I decide that I want to use some E6000 and stick that on there. And then I just hold it until it stays. But you can see how I just go through and I'll place just sporadically how it looks pleasing to my eye is how I go through and place all of these little picks in here all the way around. I just love these little crystal icicle-y looking branches that came from Dollar Tree. And so I just put these on all of my corners. Actually, I think I put a little bit more than all of the corners, but I just love how these look. And I thought they looked so pretty kind of since they were hanging over the edges more. They just brought a little bit of sparkle into it, which sometimes when you're doing farmhouse and barnwood and stuff, it's fun to have a little bit of sparkle like that, kind of glams it up a bit. But I'm just using some E6000 and some hot glue for that long and short-term hold here on the styrofoam. And you know, since hot glue sometimes doesn't work the best with styrofoam, you want to just make sure that you hold this sign down to make sure that it stays. And so I just kind of hold it for a little bit. But look at how cute this is looking. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm taking just some antiquing wax that's left on my brush from when I stained the raw part of the wood, and I just go around the edge to give it a little definition and then just brush it over the top. What it does is kind of make those letters pop a little bit more. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but it definitely made a big difference in person. Right, what do you guys think? Did I do a good job with this one? I am so excited about it. I think it turned out beautifully. You can also add like a hanger on the back if you want to hang it.
I picked this sign up at a garage sale, and you can see that it came originally from Hobby Lobby, but you can see that they've written some writing on there for preschool from a little while ago that that writing would not come off of there. I'm sure it was probably something that just sat on there long enough. And so I decided to repaint over this. Now I'm just using some of Dollar Tree's chalkboard paint, but you could easily do any kind of black paint just to get the coverage that you would need. And it only took one coat of this to cover up that writing, but I just kind of carefully go around all of the edges, and you can kind of see I'm just drying it with my heat gun and how well it turns out there that you cannot see any of that writing or anything like that. And I just love this heat gun, by the way. I have it linked down in my description box, but you guys, it's such a game changer when you're crafting. Now I have this little nativity scene that came from Dollar Tree. It's kind of a three-dimensional scene that you can stack. It comes with the little wise men as well, but I'm just going to use the Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, and the stable here. And I am painting the little figures white so they pop against that black of the chalkboard. And I thought when I was doing this that I would stain the barn structure a wood color because that was probably, I just felt like that matched a little bit better in my mind with how it should look. But originally I was going to do everything white to kind of pop against that black, but I thought it would be kind of more fun to have that on there. Now I'm just using some of my Elmer school glue to glue this on. I did this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just absolutely love this glue, and it will hold very well for what I need it to, because these wood pieces are very thin and it's got a flat surface, so the bond actually will be really good. But it is something that if I did want to remove them later, I could just stick like a little putty knife behind them to peel them off there, and I could use this again to make another sign for a different season or do something different if I wanted to. And as like with super glue or something, you wouldn't be able to do that. And if you were to use hot glue, I don't feel like they would kind of pop out a little bit more. It wouldn't be as flat as you want them to. So now I just thought at the bottom of this it would be really cute to add a little bit of mistletoe, some greenery. I really love like the little red berries on here, and then just this cute little bow that I tied there. I just think this is so simple and elegant, and I love any way that I can incorporate a nativity into my Christmas decor, because I feel like that just brings the true meaning and the true heart of Christmas into your home. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this one. I am very, very pleased with it.
I love this adorable sign at Walmart that says Santa Stop Here. It's little, it's cute, it's perfect for a tiered tray or something, and I just thought it was darling. And last time I was at Dollar Tree, I picked up this little round sign and I thought this would be the perfect dupe. So I'm first just giving this a coat of red chalk paint here. I quickly realized you can still see those letters through there, so I'm painting a layer of white over to act as a primer to give a little bit better coverage. I did have someone leave me a tip to try to do gray paint when you're painting red over it, so I'm going to try that next time. That's a great tip, so I'm definitely going to give that a try. But you can see that red paint when it goes on, it gives me much better coverage and you can't see the words underneath there at all. Now, if you did want to spray paint this, you might be able to do that and get a little bit more even coverage or a little bit more of a shimmer to it. So that is an option as well if your weather allows you to do so. Now, the one at Walmart had this cute little topper on it and the one from Dollar Tree did not. So all I did to fix that problem is I just grabbed one of the little barbecue skewers and then a little teeny finial. I get the finials at Hobby Lobby. I can leave a link to the ones on Amazon, but they come in a pack of like 5 or 10 or so, and they're perfect for adding like feet onto little risers or things, but it was the perfect little finial for the top of this sign. So I just used a little bit of my strong like super glue there to adhere that on. I thought that would work a little bit better than hot glue since it is metal and wood that I'm working with. And then I had painted it white before, and I thought that added just the perfect little touch to the top of the sign. I went on Cricut Design Space and found a couple fonts that matched pretty close to what the original inspiration piece had, and I just went ahead and did the Santa Stop Here, and then I also added a couple of little asterisks and little dots on there just like the inspiration piece had. I tried to match it as close as I could, and I think that it turns out super cute. This would be perfect if you have like an elf that visits your home at Christmas time to make sure that your little elf knew exactly where you wanted Santa to stop. It would be perfect for a tiered tray. I think this turned out so cute, and it came from Dollar Tree, and I don't recall exactly how much the one at Walmart was, but I think I did a pretty good job recreating it. What do you guys think? One of the sections at the craft store that I always say completely gets overlooked is the wedding section. I found this beautiful sign. It was $2.50. A lot of the stuff does end up going on clearance in the wedding section because not a lot of people think to check there if they're not like looking to plan for a wedding or something, but it is a great place as a crafter to check to see if they have anything that you can use. Now, I originally was going to just sign off the verbiage, not sign off, but sand off the verbiage on this sign. There we go. Because I didn't want to have to use like 10 coats of paint to cover that up. But as I did that, I noticed the most beautiful wood texture. This is the second sign that I have had from Hobby Lobby recently that has had this texture, and I have really, really loved it. It has this beautiful warmth to it, and I thought, let's try and sand the entire sign and see what this looks like and if I want to paint this or if I want to keep that. Now, I'm just letting you know that I did not use my electric sander because I didn't want to sand off the texture because it didn't seem like it seemed like the texture was placed there. So hopefully you can kind of see what I'm dealing with here and looking at. But I did just spray it down and wipe it down pretty good. However, I'll show you in a moment, I didn't do it as good as I think I should have. But this is the Iron Orchid Designer IOD Transfer. It is the Candy Cane Cottage booklet. I purchased mine off of Etsy. I do know the store that I purchased mine from is currently sold out, but I have heard that they are getting these back in stock. So check your local IOD seller that has these, or check online because I've heard that they're coming back because I know they have been a little hard to find. But in my last video, you guys went nuts for the one that I did and loved it. So I thought I would show you this beautiful candy cane sign here. Now I'm just peel off the backing. These work very similar to any other transfer that you've ever used, and they are a little bit of an investment. So I know a lot of you were like, oh, I don't know what to do because I don't want to screw a sign up. I don't want to mess it up. And I literally almost messed this up, but I really think if you have some patience, it's really hard to mess it up. And what I mean by that is when I placed it down and I started scraping, and you get this scraping tool that comes with each booklet that you purchase from IOD. But what happened was I think I didn't clean off where I sanded good enough. And so I think there was a lot of the dust underneath this when I placed it down. So I had a very difficult time getting this to transfer. Now it could have also been the texture that was on the wood. There was nothing for the transfer to adhere to. So I think it could have been one or the other, or a combination of the both. But I just want you to know that I stuck with it and was very patient. It took me about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes maybe, to get this entire graphic to transfer, but it did work and it looks amazing in the end. So if you start doing this and you lift it up and you're like, oh my gosh, it's not lifting up, or it looks like it's tearing or anything, just place that carrier sheet back down and keep rubbing and pressing until your design transfers and you can lift that up and move to the next area. This has a lot of little teeny areas to get to transfer, so it's not like one big solid design. I feel like those are a little bit easier, but when you have several different little words and several different little lines, and you can see kind of that like filigree almost on the corners, it does take a little bit of time with this. But I just stuck with it and went and took my time. As I lifted it up, if I needed to place it back down, I did that and kept doing it until it all came off. And you can see how beautifully it did come out. So don't worry, just have some patience. Now you just take the carrier sheet and turn it over and you just rub that on to make sure that it is all nice and placed on there. You have a good bond. There's no snags or anything that are going to peel off your transfer design. And you could just leave this sign just as is like this. It looks just beautiful, but I do a couple of things to kind of make it look a little more authentic. And by that I mean I take a weeding tool. You can get these at Dollar Tree now if you didn't know. I've seen them there. I actually purchased one there recently, which they're pretty good. So keep that in mind, that if you don't have a cutting machine, you still have a lot of uses for these weeding tools. So I'm just going through those natural grooves in the wood there, and I'm just taking away or breaking the sign there, breaking the transfer, so that way it looks like it's a little bit more authentic with how those lines look where the grooves in the wood were. Now you could stop there, but of course I love to distress things, and so I did take my fingernail file and I go over the entire design. Because I loved that texture on the wood so much, I really wanted this to look like an old sign that maybe somebody found going through Santa's workshop or his old display of signs or something, that it had been sitting there for years. I love to make backstories to my pieces to kind of help get me into the mood of decorating them. But I just lightly went over all of the words, all of the designs, and sanded just until you could see a little bit of that wood tone coming through. You can see here, if that's not your style, don't worry about it. A lot of you think like, oh my goodness, I paid so much for this transfer, why would I do that? I get it. Don't do it if you don't want to, but if you really like that rusty, crusty look, then definitely give this a try. You guys, what do you think of this sign? I think it turned out so beautiful. Now these are a little bit of an investment, but if you take the price of each individual transfer that you get and considering the size and compare that to Dollar Tree transfers, you're pretty much not quite equal, but pretty close. So just know that it is a little bit of an investment, but I think that the results that you get, this sign is just proof that they turn out so beautifully. Have you guys tried the IOD transfers before? Are you liking seeing them? It was wildly popular in my last video, so let me know down in the comments if you want to keep seeing some different DIYs from this booklet. I would like to thank you so much for joining me for today's compilation video. I hope that you enjoyed all of these DIYs. If you had a favorite, let me know down in the comments. I always love to hear which ones you guys like the best. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting! If you like the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.